I lay in that hospital bed, tubes snaking into my arms, the beep of machines drilling into my skull. My body ached, but nothing hurt worse than the words Daniel spat at me that night. "I'm not paying for this," he'd said, his voice sharp as a blade. "You're a burden now, Clara." Then he turned and walked out, his polished shoes clicking down the hall like he couldn't get away fast enough. I stared at the empty doorway, waiting for him to come back. He didn't. The nurse shuffled in later, her face pinched with pity. "He called," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Told me to tell you to ring your family. Your poor family," he said, "to cover the bills. Said he's divorcing you." Her words hit like a punch, stealing what little breath I had left. Divorcing me? After everything I'd given him? After I'd built his world from nothing? I'd always known Daniel had a selfish streak. Back when we met 10 years ago, I'd mistaken it for ambition. He'd been a smooth talker with big dreams but no plan. Until I came along. I was the one who stayed up nights coding the algorithms that launched Nexus Innovations. I pitched to clients when he fumbled his lines, smiled through his tantrums when deals went south. I made him a success and he made me believe we were a team. Somewhere along the way, that team put him on a pedestal and me in the shadows. The hospital room felt smaller as the truth sank in. I'd been sick for weeks, some infection that turned my lungs to fire, and he'd barely visited. I thought he was busy with work. Turns out he'd been busy with her. "Vanessa." I heard him through the thin wall as he paced the corridor, his voice low but clear. "Yeah, babe, soon as I'm free, it's you and me. Paris, maybe." "She's done." Laughter. Her giggles crackled through the phone, and my stomach twisted. He was leaving me here to die, plotting his escape with some woman I'd never met. I could have crumbled then. Part of me wanted to let the fever take me, let him win. But something snapped instead. Anger, hot and jagged, clawed at my chest. He thought I was nothing without him. He'd built his empire on my brain, my sweat, and now he was tossing me aside like trash. No, I wasn't done. Not yet. The next morning, a courier shoved divorce papers under my nose. His signature was already there, scrawled in that careless slant I used to find charming. I stared at it, my hands shaking. The nurse hovered nearby, probably thinking I'd cry. I didn't. I signed the papers, my pen digging into the page so hard it nearly tore. Let him have his freedom. He'd regret it. Getting out of that hospital wasn't easy. My parents wired what little they could. Dad's a retired mechanic, Mom's a part-time clerk. And I scraped together the rest from a savings account Daniel didn't know about. He'd always laughed at my penny pinching, said it was beneath him. Good thing I'd ignored him. The bills got paid, and I got stronger, one bitter day at a time. The doctors said it was a miracle. I called it spite. I didn't confront him. Didn't call or scream or beg. What was the point? He'd made his choice, and I'd make mine. The day I left the hospital, I packed a suitcase, clothes, my laptop, a few photos of us I burned in the parking lot, and drove out of that suffocating little town. I didn't look back. Daniel probably thought I'd crawl to my parents' cramped trailer, tail between my legs. He had no idea what I was capable of. Lying in that bed, I'd had time to think. Every late night I'd spent fixing his mistakes replayed in my head. Every client I'd won with a handshake and a smile. Nexus wasn't his, it was mine. He'd stolen the credit, the glory. And now he thought he could steal my life too. But I wasn't the weak link he'd pegged me for. I'd survived the infection. I'd survive him. As the town faded in my rearview mirror, I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. "You'll see what I'm worth," I whispered, the words a promise to myself. Daniel had his mistress, his divorce, his smug little victory. Let him enjoy it. I'd built something new, something he couldn't touch. And when the time came, he'd learn the hard way. You don't discard someone like me and walk away unscathed. That night, in a cheap motel room with peeling wallpaper, I opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keys, then started typing. A new plan. A new name. Clara was gone, weak, trusting Clara, who'd loved a man too blind to see her. Someone else was taking her place. Someone stronger. Someone he'd never see coming. 6 months after I left that hospital bed behind, I stood in a glass-walled office overlooking a city that didn't know my name or my past. I wasn't Clara anymore. Clara had died in that sterile room, abandoned by a man too selfish to care. I'd become Elena now, a name I'd picked because it sounded sharp, unbreakable. It fit the woman I'd forged in those long, lonely months after Daniel walked out. I'd landed in this city with nothing but a suitcase and a laptop, but that was enough. I'd always been good at building things. Nexus had been proof of that, even if Daniel took the credit. So I started over. Phoenix Solutions was my baby, a consulting firm I'd clawed into existence with every ounce of grit I had left. I took on small clients first, startups with big ideas and no clue how to execute. I turned them around one by one until the whispers started. Elena's a miracle worker, they said. She sees what you don't. They didn't know I'd spent years fixing a man's messes before fixing theirs. That day, I just closed a deal with a tech firm on the brink of collapse. Their CEO shook my hand, grinning like I'd handed him a golden ticket. "You're a genius," he said. I smiled back, cool and professional, but inside I felt the old fire flicker. Genius. Daniel used to call me that, back when he still bothered to notice. Now I was proving it. To myself, to the world, to anyone but him. My assistant, Mia, buzzed me as I sat at my desk, flipping through contracts. "Got a new inquiry," she said, her voice crisp through the intercom. "Nexus Innovations. They're asking for a merger. Guy named Daniel Carter wants to meet." My pen froze mid-signature. Nexus. Daniel. The air in the room thickened, pressing against my chest. I'd known he'd falter without me. His ego was too big to sustain what I'd built. But hearing his name still hit like a slap. "What's their status?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. Mia rattled off the details. Losing clients, bleeding cash, weeks from bankruptcy. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Nexus was dying, and Daniel was scrambling. The man who'd left me to rot now needed a savior. And fate, cruel, twisted fate, had dropped him right in my lap. I could have said no. Could have let him drown in the mess he'd made. But something sharper than mercy stirred in me. I wanted to see him. Wanted to look him in the eye and watch him squirm, oblivious to who I was. "Set the meeting," I told Mia. "Next week." My terms. She didn't question it. No one did anymore. While I built my empire, Daniel had been tearing his down. I kept tabs, not out of longing but strategy. Word was he'd been flaunting Vanessa around town, blowing money on her like it'd never run out. He'd lost 3 major clients in a month, botched a product launch I'd designed, and fired half his staff in a tantrum. The board was jumping ship. He didn't know how to fix it because he'd never had to. I'd always been there cleaning up after him. Not anymore. The night before the meeting, I sat in my apartment, a glass of wine in hand, staring at my laptop. I pulled up Nexus's public filings. Numbers don't lie. And these screamed desperation. Revenue down 60%. Debt piling up. I could save it. One signature, one deal, and Phoenix could pull Nexus from the brink. But why would I? He'd left me with nothing. Let him taste the same. I thought about Vanessa too. She'd been a shadow in my marriage, a name I'd heard in passing but never faced. I'd found her online once, blonde, all curves and confidence, the kind of woman Daniel chased to feel powerful. She'd posted pictures with him, captioned with hearts and promises. I wondered if she knew how he'd abandoned me in that hospital, laughing with her while I fought to breathe. Probably not. She'd learned soon enough what he was worth. The meeting loomed like a storm on the horizon. I didn't sleep much that night, my mind racing with possibilities. I'd face him as Elena, not Clara, calm, untouchable, a stranger with the power to crush him. He'd try to charm me like he charmed everyone. I'd let him think it was working. Then I'd decide. Lift him up just to drop him harder, or walk away and watch him burn. As dawn broke, I stood at my window, the city waking below me. Phoenix Solutions was mine, earned not stolen. Daniel had taken everything else, my trust, my years, my pride. But he couldn't take this. I'd built it from ashes, and it was stronger than anything he'd ever touched. He'd come begging, and I'd be ready. I finished my wine, set the glass down, and opened my laptop again. One last look at his email, his name glaring back at me. My hand hovered over the keyboard, then typed a single word to Mia. Accepted. The game was on. He'd left me for dead once. Now I'd show him what survival looked like. The conference room at Phoenix Solutions gleamed with glass and steel, a far cry from the dingy hospital where Daniel had left me to rot. I sat at the head of the table, my hands folded, my face a mask of cool indifference. Elena was in control now. Clara was buried deep, where he'd never find her. When he walked in, I didn't flinch, even though my pulse hammered like a drum. He looked worse than I'd expected. His suit was sharp, but his eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight with strain. The swagger was still there, though, that cocky tilt of his head I'd once found charming. "Elena," he said, flashing a grin as he extended his hand. "Heard you're the one to beat in this game." I shook it, my grip firm, my smile thin. "I don't play games, Mr. Carter. I win them." He laughed, settling into the chair across from me like he owned the place. He didn't know who I was. Didn't recognize the woman he'd discarded, now holding his fate in her hands. I dyed my hair darker, traded my old glasses for contacts, let the city sharpen my edges. But it wasn't just the look. He'd never really seen me, even when we were married. I'd been a tool, a shadow. Now I was a stranger with power, and he was too arrogant to sense the trap. "Let's cut to it," I said, sliding a tablet across the table. "Nexus is bleeding. You need a merger or you're done. Why should I care?" He leaned back, crossing his arms, that smug glint in his eye. "Because I've got a brand, a vision. You've got cash and a knack for fixing things. We're a perfect match." A vision? I almost laughed. His vision had been my code, my late nights, my deals. He'd just signed the checks and taken the bows. I asked questions, sharp, precise ones. "Your revenue's down 60%. Why?" He shifted, muttering about market shifts. 3 clients bailed last quarter. What happened? He blamed the economy. Lies piled up, and I let them, jotting notes like I was buying it. Every dodge was a thread I'd pull later, unraveling him piece by piece. He didn't notice my silence wasn't agreement. It was a blade being honed. Memories crept in as he talked. Our first year married, when I'd pitched Nexus's big break to a room full of suits while he stumbled over his lines. He'd kissed me after, called me his lucky charm. By year 5 he'd stopped thanking me, started snapping when I corrected him. I'd shrunk myself to fit his ego, thinking it was love. Now, watching him spin his web of half-truths, I saw the man I'd wasted a decade on. A hollow shell, all charm and no spine. "You remind me of someone I used to know," he said suddenly, his grin turning playful. My heart stuttered, but I kept my face blank. "I doubt that," I replied, my voice ice. He shrugged, oblivious, and launched into his pitch. How Phoenix could revitalize Nexus. How he'd oversee the turnaround. Oversee. Like he'd ever lifted a finger beyond posing for photos. I nodded, letting him dig deeper. His confidence a rope I'd used to hang him. The meeting ended with a handshake and his promise to send over financials. "You won't regret this," he said, winking. I smiled back, a predator's smile. "I never do." He left, and I sat there staring at the door, the weight of it all crashing down. I had him. His books would show the truth, mismanagement, maybe worse. I could save Nexus, prop him up just to watch him fall again. Or I could let it die and walk away clean. That night in my apartment, I pored over the files he'd sent. Numbers danced on the screen, a story of ruin. He'd botched everything I'd built, fired the team I'd trained, tanked the projects I'd designed. Part of me wanted to fix it, not for him, but for the people I'd known there. Sarah, the coder who'd brought me coffee on rough days. Mark, the sales guy who'd trusted my gut. They didn't deserve his mess. But saving them meant saving him, and that stuck in my throat like glass. I paced, wine in hand, wrestling with it. Revenge was easy. Say no, let Nexus collapse, let him taste the nothing he'd left me with. But those faces, Sarah, Mark, the others, haunted me. Could I punish him without punishing them? I didn't know. Not yet. I sat at my desk, pulling up a blank document. 2 options stared back. Reject the merger, or draft terms so tight he'd choke on them. My fingers hovered, undecided. Then I remembered the hospital. His voice on that call, laughing with Vanessa while I fought to breathe. "She's done," he'd said. Done. Like I was a used-up thing to toss aside. The memory burned and my hand steadied. He'd made his choice. Now I'd make mine. I started typing, the words cold and final. Whatever I decided, it wouldn't be for him. It'd be for me. The me he'd never seen. The me he'd regret underestimating. I thought I'd left the past behind. Locked it away with the name Clara and the life I'd burned to ash. But the past doesn't stay buried. It claws its way back when you least expect it. That night, in my apartment, I was still riding the high of outsmarting Daniel in that meeting. His financials sat on my laptop, a ticking bomb of incompetence I could detonate whenever I chose. Then my buzzer rang, sharp and insistent, shattering the quiet. I opened the door and there they were. Daniel's family, a wall of familiar faces twisted with desperation. His mother, Ruth, stood front and center, her gray hair pulled tight, her eyes accusing. Behind her loomed his sister, Beth, arms crossed, and the kids, Jake and Lily, 16 and 14, staring at me like I'd stabbed them in the back. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen them since the divorce, since I'd slipped out of town without a goodbye. Clara, Ruth said, her voice a whip. We know it's you. Elena, Phoenix Solutions, all this fancy nonsense. You can't hide from us. I stood frozen, gripping the doorframe. They'd found me. Someone, maybe a mutual friend, maybe a slip in my armor, had pieced it together. What do you want? I asked, keeping my tone flat, though my pulse raced. We want you to save Nexus, Beth cut in, stepping forward. Daniel's company, your company once. It's dying, and you're the only one who can stop it. Her words stung, dragging up memories of late nights at Nexus, building it brick by brick. I'd loved that place, loved the team, even loved Daniel before he turned into a stranger. Now they were here, begging me to fix his mess. Ruth's glare sharpened. You're vindictive, Clara. Holding a grudge while people lose their jobs. You think that makes you strong? I wanted to snap back, tell her about the hospital, the mistress, the way he'd left me to die. But Jake spoke before I could, his voice cracking. You were like a mom to us. Why are you doing this? Lily nodded, her eyes wet, and my chest tightened. They didn't know. He'd never told them. I stepped back, letting them in because I didn't trust my legs to hold me. They filed into my living room, a space too small for this reckoning. Sit, I said, pointing at the couch. They did, but the tension stayed thick. You don't understand, I started, my voice low. Daniel, Ruth cut me off. Daniel's a fool, we know that. But this isn't just about him. It's about us, the kids, the people who worked for you. You're punishing everyone. I paced, their words clawing at me. Jake and Lily had been mine in a way, weekends at the park, helping with homework, tucking them in when Daniel was working late. I'd walked away from them too, not because I wanted to, but because staying hurt too much. Now they sat there, betrayed twice over, and I felt the guilt I'd buried start to rise. Why now? I asked, turning to Ruth. Why come to me? She sighed, her shoulders slumping. He's broke. Nexus is weeks from folding. We heard about your merger talks. You're his last shot. Beth added. We're not asking for him. We're asking for us. I looked at the kids, their faces pleading, and something in me cracked. Not for Daniel, for them. I sent them away with a promise to think about it. No guarantees, I said, shutting the door on their hopeful stares. Alone again, I sank into a chair, my head spinning. They didn't know the half of it. How he'd laughed with Vanessa while I fought for air. How he'd signed me out of his life like a bad debt. But they were right about one thing. Nexus wasn't just his. It was mine too, and the people there didn't deserve to sink with him. I pulled up his financials again, digging deeper. What I found made my blood run cold. Embezzlement. Hundreds of thousands siphoned off, funneled into accounts I didn't recognize. Vanessa's name was on one, a joint holding with Daniel. He hadn't just ruined Nexus, he'd robbed it blind. I could prove it, take it to the board, the cops, anyone who'd listen. But that wouldn't save the company, just bury him faster. I opened a new document, my fingers trembling. Option 1. Reject the merger, let Nexus collapse and leak the evidence. He'd lose everything, money, family, freedom. Option 2. Draft a deal so tight he'd choke. Phoenix takes control, he's out, the employees stay. I'd win either way, but the kids' faces lingered. Jake's voice echoed. You were like a mom. I'd abandoned them once. Could I do it again? I typed both plans side by side, staring at the screen until my eyes burned. Revenge was a fire in my gut, urging me to burn him down. But those kids, the team, they were collateral I hadn't counted on. I thought of Sarah, the coder who'd trusted me, Mark who'd followed my lead. Could I save them without saving him? I didn't know. Not yet. I stood pacing again, the weight of it crushing me. Daniel had taken my life once. Now his family wanted me to give it back piece by piece. I stopped at the window, the city lights blurring below. Whatever I chose, it'd be my call. Not theirs, not his. I'd built Phoenix from nothing. I could build something else too, a way to win without losing myself. But first I had to face him one last time. I stood outside Nexus Innovations one last time, the building a ghost of what it had been. Windows dark, parking lot empty, the sign flickering like it knew the end was near. I'd driven there straight from my apartment, the weight of Daniel's finances, and his family's pleas, burning a hole in my bag. This wasn't about saving him. It was about settling a score my way. Inside, the lobby echoed with silence, a far cry from the buzz I'd once fueled. A receptionist, new, probably desperate, buzzed me up to Daniel's office. He'd called the meeting, thinking I'd cave, that Elena would hand him a lifeline. He didn't know I'd come to cut the rope. He sat behind his desk, a king on a crumbling throne. Papers were strewn everywhere, his tie loose, his face haggard. "Elena," he said, forcing a grin. "Knew you'd see sense. Let's sign this thing in." I raised a hand, stopping him cold. "No deal," I said, my voice steady. His grin faltered. "What?" I stepped closer, dropping my bag on his desk. "You don't recognize me, do you?" He blinked, confusion creasing his brow. I leaned in, locking eyes. "It's Clara, Daniel. The wife you left in that hospital. The one who built this place while you chased your mistress." His jaw dropped, color draining from his face. For once he had nothing to say. I pulled out the financials, slamming them down. "You embezzled from Nexus. Funneled it to Vanessa, to your little fantasy life. I've got proof, dates, accounts, everything." His hand shook as he grabbed the papers, scanning them like he could will the truth away. "I didn't," he stammered. "Don't lie," I snapped. "You're done." He slumped back, eyes darting. "Clara, please. I messed up, I know. But the company, people need it. The kids." I cut him off. "Don't you dare bring them into this. You left me to die. Told the nurse to call my poor family while you laughed with her. You don't get to beg now." I paced, letting it pour out. "I built Nexus. Every line of code, every deal, me. You took the credit, the glory. And when I needed you, you walked away. She's done, you said. Well, I wasn't. But you are." He stared, a broken man. And part of me wanted to feel sorry. I didn't. I'd spent too long carrying his weight. "Sign it over," I said, tossing a new document his way. "Phoenix takes Nexus, full control. You're out. The employees keep their jobs, but you get nothing." He gaped. "You can't." "I can," I shot back. "Or I take this to the board, the cops. You'll lose more than a company. You'll lose your freedom." He knew I wasn't bluffing. His hand trembled as he reached for a pen, then stopped. "Please, Clara. I'm sorry." "Sorry." The word hung there, hollow. I saw the hospital again. His shoes clicking away. Vanessa's giggles on the phone. "You're bankrupt in more ways than one," I said, turning for the door. "Keep your apology. I don't need it." I walked out, his silence louder than any plea. Nexus folded days later. He didn't sign, couldn't face it, so I let it die. But I didn't let the team sink. I'd already set up a new startup, Phoenix Core, funneling my own money to hire Sarah, Mark, and the others I'd cared about. They didn't need to know it was me, just that someone believed in them. Daniel's family cut him off, the kids included, once the embezzlement leaked. I didn't leak it. Someone else did. Karma, maybe. Weeks later, I stood on my office balcony, the city sprawling below. Phoenix Solutions thrived, my name, Elena's name, on every lip in the industry. I'd won, but victory tasted bittersweet. Ruth's accusations, Jake's tears, Lily's hurt, they lingered, shadows I couldn't shake. I'd saved who I could, punished who I had to. Was it enough? A letter came that morning, slipped under my door. Jake's handwriting, shaky but clear. "I didn't know," it read. "Dad never told us. I get it now. Thanks for the startup. Sarah says it's you. I'm sorry." I read it twice, my throat tight. He was working at Phoenix Core, finding his way. Lily too, I'd heard. They'd survive like I had. I folded the letter, tucking it into a drawer. Daniel was alone now, a footnote in a story I'd rewritten. I'd built something new twice over, and no one could take it from me. Not him, not his family. Not the guilt that still whispered in quiet moments. I stepped back inside, the balcony door clicking shut behind me. The past was done. I'd faced it, fought it, and walked away stronger. Clara had died in that hospital, but Elena lived sharp, unyielding, free. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop and started typing. A new project, a new challenge. The fire was still there, burning brighter than ever. And this time it was all mine. And that's how I turned betrayal into triumph, one choice at a time. What would you have done? Forgiven Daniel or let him fall? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button if you rooted for my comeback. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss my next story. Because trust me, there's more where this came from. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.